There are legends that never die. Names like Star Wars, Star Trek, and Doctor Who. Stories that have outlived their creators, rewritten pop culture, and shaped generations of dreamers. But for every sci-fi masterpiece that stood the test of time, there are others that burned brighter and fell harder. These were shows that once rivaled Star Trek in ratings, fandom, and imagination. Universes that promised something bigger, wilder, and stranger. But behind the scenes, Hollywood did what it does best. It took brilliance and buried it. Some were sabotaged by studio greed. Others were rebooted until they meant nothing. And a few, they were destroyed so many times. Even their fans lost hope. Today, we're resurrecting them. 10 sci-fi shows that should have conquered the galaxy, but were destroyed over and over again by Hollywood itself. So buckle up, because the deeper we go, the more you'll realize, sometimes, Hollywood isn't the hero of the story, it's the villain. Let's begin. Number 10, Lost in Space. 1965. Before Star Trek inspired a generation of dreamers, Lost in Space was already doing it, and doing it with more style, more humor, and far more heart. Premiering in 1965, it told the story of the Robinson family, explorers on a mission to colonize a new world after Earth's resources began to fade. But somewhere between the stars, their ship veered off course, stranding them in the depths of space. It was Swiss Family Robinson meets the unknown, a tale of survival and adventure wrapped in dazzling colors and futuristic wonder. The chemistry was magic, and the ratings soared. For a time, Lost in Space was more popular than Star Trek, a cultural juggernaut with catchphrases and characters that became household icons. But Hollywood has a strange relationship with success. It can't resist tampering with what works. After the original series ended in 1968, studios spent decades trying to modernize it. They stripped away the campy humor, the warmth, and the innocence that made it special. When the 1990-80 film arrived, starring Matt LeBlanc, William Hurt, and Gary Oldman, fans hoped for a revival worthy of the classic. What they got instead was a tonal black hole, a grim, joyless retelling that mistook darkness for depth. The family dynamic was gone, replaced by heavy exposition and CGI chaos. Still not satisfied, Netflix took another swing in 2018. Their version was polished, expensive, and visually stunning. It turned the Robinsons into side characters in their own story, overwhelmed by melodrama and glossy tension. Critics praised the effects but missed the point entirely. Lost in Space wasn't about saving humanity, it was about being human. In the end, every reboot failed for the same reason, which was Hollywood trying to make Lost in Space into something it never was. They wanted a darker, smarter, more cinematic version. But all audiences ever wanted was a family, lost together, finding hope among the stars. For all its flaws, the original Lost in Space remains the only version that truly understood its soul, that sometimes the greatest sci-fi stories aren't about technology, they're about the people holding it together. Number 9. V. 1983. In the spring of 1983, America turned on their televisions and froze. Massive alien ships hovered over every major city in the world. They called themselves visitors. They came in peace. They came to share knowledge, medicine, technology. But within weeks, something felt wrong. People disappeared. Information was controlled. The smiling faces on TV began to sound more like propaganda than promise. This was V, the science fiction event that captured the Cold War's paranoia and the world's fear of control. Created by Kenneth Johnson, V was a bold allegory wrapped in science fiction. Beneath their human skin, the aliens were reptilian conquerors, feeding on humanity's trust. The parallels were chilling. Resistance movements hiding in shadows, propaganda rewriting truth, and neighbors turning against neighbors in the name of safety. At its peak, V outperformed Star Trek reruns in viewership. People gathered to watch the nightly rebellion unfold, a story not about aliens, but about people, about courage in the face of quiet tyranny. Actress Jane Badler's chilling performance as Diana, the cold-blooded alien leader, became a defining villain of the decade. For a brief moment, V felt unstoppable, raw, relevant, and frighteningly real. But then, Hollywood did what Hollywood always does. It took a masterpiece and dismantled it for profit. NBC, eager to cash in, forced a rushed sequel and a full TV series. The story lost its teeth. Budgets were slashed, scripts softened, And Kenneth Johnson, the man who gave V its meaning, was pushed out. What began as a haunting allegory about fascism became a soap opera with lizard people. Audiences fell away. And then came 2009. ABC revived V once more, this time as a sleek, sanitized remake. The aliens were still there, but the warning was gone. The tragedy of V is that it tried to tell the truth, and the truth made Hollywood uncomfortable. It showed how easily we trade freedom for safety, and how control can come disguised as kindness. But when the studios took over, they stripped that message away. Number 8. Battlestar Galactica, 1978. In 1978, television was reaching for the stars. Star Wars had just changed cinema forever, and studios scrambled to bring that magic to the small screen. Out of that frenzy came Battlestar Galactica, a show so ambitious it made Star Trek look small. It wasn't just a series, it was a cosmic epic. The story began with humanity on the brink of extinction. After a devastating sneak attack by the robotic Cylons, the remnants of 12 human colonies fled across the stars aboard a massive battleship searching for one last mythical refuge, a distant planet called Earth. Led by Commander Adama, the crew's mission wasn't to explore. It was to survive. The tone was darker, more cinematic, and emotionally charged. A desperate odyssey about faith, destiny, and resilience. When Battlestar Galactica premiered, it was a ratings hit. Kids collected the toys, adults debated the religious themes, and critics saw something profound hiding beneath the laser battles. For a brief, shining moment, it outshone Star Trek itself. But Hollywood couldn't keep up with its own creation. Each episode cost over $1 million, and the networks panicked. ABC canceled it after just one season, citing unsustainable expenses. The universe that had captured the public's imagination was abruptly shut down mid-flight. Then, in 1980, came a rushed, low-budget sequel that stripped away everything audiences loved. The epic scope was gone, replaced by cheap sets and absurd storylines. Fans recoiled. It wasn't until 2004 that the series was resurrected, this time with a complete reinvention. The reimagined Battlestar Galactica was a masterpiece of modern sci-fi. Gritty, emotional, and politically charged. But even that version fell to behind-the-scenes turmoil, studio interference, and eventual burnout. In the end, Battlestar Galactica proved something powerful. Sometimes brilliance isn't enough to survive Hollywood. It soared higher than Star Trek, dared to be deeper, more human, and more daring. But each time it reached for greatness, the system that birthed it pulled it back to Earth. Number 7. Firefly 2002. Every once in a while, a show comes along that burns bright enough to change everything, and then disappears before anyone realizes what they had. Firefly was that kind of show. Created by Joss Whedon in 2002, Firefly was a genre-defying fusion of space western, political allegory, and found family drama. Set 500 years in the future, it followed Captain Malcolm Reynolds, a war veteran turned smuggler, and his ragtag crew aboard the Serenity, a small transport ship drifting between the stars. They weren't heroes, they weren't villains, they were survivors, living on the edges of a galaxy ruled by the oppressive Alliance. The magic of Firefly was its humanity. The dialogue sparkled with warmth and humor. The characters felt like family. It wasn't about technology or aliens. It was about people trying to hold on to decency in a world that had forgotten it. When it premiered, the fan base exploded with passion. Critics compared it favorably to Star Trek, calling it the show that brought heart back to science fiction. But Hollywood didn't see heart. It saw poor scheduling. Fox aired episodes out of order, cut key scenes, and buried the series in a Friday night death slot. The result? Confusion, low ratings, and cancellation after only 11 episodes. One of the most original sci-fi visions ever made was axed before it even had a chance to find its audience. Fans refused to let it die. Conventions, fan letters, and online campaigns brought Firefly back from the dead, leading to the 2005 film Serenity, which wrapped up the story with heartbreak and grace. But even that victory was bittersweet. Hollywood had destroyed the show's momentum long before it reached its prime. Firefly wasn't just another sci-fi series, it was a glimpse of what television could be when imagination wasn't chained by executives. It dared to mix genres, challenge cliches, and celebrate human spirit. But in the end, it was killed not by viewers, but by a system too blind to see its brilliance. Number 6. The X-Files, 1993. In the early 90s, sci-fi television was fading. Reruns and nostalgia ruled the airwaves. Then came The X-Files, and everything changed. It wasn't just a hit, it was a movement. Created by Chris Carter in 1993, The X-Files followed two FBI agents, Fox Mulder, a believer in the paranormal, and Dana Scully, a skeptic grounded in science. Together, they investigated unexplained phenomena, government conspiracies, and alien encounters that blurred the line between truth and fiction. The chemistry between David Duchovny and Gillian Anderson wasn't just electric, it was cultural lightning. Every Friday night, millions of viewers tuned in, not just for the monsters or mysteries, but for the haunting sense that something bigger and darker was out there. The show dominated ratings, eclipsed Star Trek, The Next Generation in cultural buzz, and even changed television storytelling. Trust no one became a mantra of a generation skeptical of power and institutions. But with massive success came Hollywood's oldest enemy, overexposure. Fox demanded more episodes, more seasons, and eventually more spin-offs and films. What began as a tightly woven conspiracy thriller slowly unraveled under the weight of studio demands. Plots tangled, character arcs stretched thin, and the spark between Mulder and Scully was lost to endless rewrites and network fatigue. By the time The X-Files returned for its modern reboot, the mystery had become formula. The world had changed, but the story hadn't, and what once felt dangerous now felt recycled. Still, for a time, The X-Files was untouchable, a show that captured paranoia, faith, and fear with surgical precision. It was proof that sci-fi didn't need starships to feel cosmic. But in Hollywood, success always carries a price, and for The X-Files, that price was its soul. Number 5. Babylon 5, 1994. In the mid-1990s, when Star Trek: The Next Generation dominated television, one bold show dared to challenge it, and for a brief, shining moment, it actually did. Babylon 5 wasn't just another space opera. It was the thinking person's sci-fi, a slow-burning epic of politics, war, and destiny set aboard a single space station caught in the crossfire of galactic empires. Created by J. Michael Straczynski, Babylon 5 told the story of Commander Jeffrey Sinclair and later Captain John Sheridan, two men charged with maintaining peace among alien races barely holding their alliances together. What made it revolutionary was its structure. Straczynski designed the entire series like a novel, with a 5-year story arc already mapped out. Every decision, betrayal, and death mattered. There were no reset buttons like Star Trek. Actions had consequences, and the story moved relentlessly toward an epic conclusion. Audiences loved its ambition. Critics called it the anti-Star Trek. Darker, more serialized, and startlingly human. Babylon 5 won Emmys for its groundbreaking digital effects and amassed a fiercely loyal fan base that treated it as gospel. For a time, it even outshined Star Trek Deep Space Nine, which many accused of copying its premise, but Hollywood couldn't let it thrive. The network behind it, P10, collapsed during the show's run, forcing Babylon 5 to rush its planned 5-year story into 4 seasons out of fear of sudden cancellation. Budget cuts hit hard, sets were scaled back, and some actors were written out mid-story. Just when fans thought it was safe, TNT acquired the rights and immediately began demanding changes, reshoots, and a fresh start to attract new viewers. The result was Crusade, a spin-off series that barely made it past a handful of episodes before being scrapped. Yet, despite all that, Babylon 5 endures. Its characters remain etched into sci-fi history. Its vision of unity through chaos feels even more relevant today. Number 4. Farscape, 1999. In 1999, Farscape exploded onto screens with a wild mix of puppetry, passion, and pure imagination. A show that felt like it came from another universe entirely. Created by Rockne S. O'Bannon and produced by the Jim Henson Company, it told the story of astronaut John Crichton, a human accidentally flung through a wormhole to the farthest reaches of space. There, he joins a living ship crewed by escaped alien prisoners, on the run from a brutal military empire known as the Peacekeepers. It was strange, daring, and utterly original. The characters didn't look like humans in rubber suits. They were aliens brought to life with cutting-edge animatronics and prosthetics that made Star Trek's effects look quaint. But beyond the visuals, Farscape was raw emotion. It wasn't about utopia or exploration, it was about chaos, love, survival, and identity. John Crichton wasn't a hero. He was lost, broken, and haunted by the universe itself. Critics loved it. Fans adored it. And for a moment, it looked like Farscape would become the next great sci-fi empire. But Hollywood didn't know what to do with a show that refused to fit the mold. It wasn't family-friendly enough for network TV, too weird for executives chasing Star Wars-style formulas, and too expensive for its niche audience. Despite strong ratings and a devoted fan base, the Sci-Fi Channel abruptly canceled it during production of its 5th season, ending the story on a cliffhanger that left millions of fans stunned. Number 3. Quantum Leap, 1989. Few shows have ever captured the human heart the way Quantum Leap did. Premiering in 1989, it followed Dr. Sam Beckett, a brilliant scientist who creates a time travel experiment and becomes trapped in his own invention, leaping into the lives of strangers throughout history to right what once went wrong. Each episode dropped him into a new era, a new body, and a new identity, forcing him to live another person's life while searching for a way home. It was science fiction, yes, but at its core, it was about empathy, about walking in someone else's shoes, seeing the world through their eyes, and understanding that humanity's story is shared. Actor Scott Bakula gave Sam a warmth that few sci-fi protagonists ever achieve. His friendship with Al, the cigar-chomping holographic companion, played by Dean Stockwell, gave the show its emotional center. Audiences fell in love instantly. Quantum Leap wasn't just a hit. It became NBC's crown jewel, attracting millions of loyal viewers and surpassing Star Trek: The Next Generation in emotional resonance and cultural reach. It won awards, spawned novels, and even influenced real scientific discussions about consciousness and morality. Number 2. The Outer Limits, 1963. Before Star Trek, before Black Mirror, there was The Outer Limits, a show that didn't just predict the future of science fiction television, it invented it. Premiering in 1963, The Outer Limits wasn't about spaceships or heroes, it was about ideas. Each episode was a standalone story, a parable exploring fear, morality, and human limitation. The tone was eerie, poetic, and philosophical. A cold whisper that warned audiences about the dangers of progress, the seduction of technology, and the fragility of human ethics. Every week, viewers gathered in the dark to hear the chilling opening command: "There is nothing wrong with your television set. Do not attempt to adjust the picture." It wasn't just television. It was a broadcast from the subconscious of a generation caught between the atomic age and the space race. While Star Trek dreamed of humanity's future, The Outer Limits haunted it. Its stories pushed boundaries: androids questioning consciousness, aliens reflecting human cruelty, time travel exposing destiny itself. But Hollywood couldn't handle it. The show was too dark, too intellectual, too strange. ABC executives clashed constantly with creator Leslie Stevens and writer Joseph Stefano, forcing rewrites and toning down its ideas. After only 2 seasons, it was abruptly canceled despite critical acclaim. Ironically, decades later, Hollywood tried to revive The Outer Limits in the 90s, and at first, it worked. The reboot ran for 7 seasons, introducing a new generation to moral science fiction. But then came syndication, greed, and cost-cutting. The show's tone turned inconsistent, its writing diluted, and the existential weight replaced by shock value. What made The Outer Limits legendary wasn't its monsters, it was its courage. It asked the questions no one else would. But every time it tried to rise again, Hollywood smothered it with market-friendly caution. Number 1. The Twilight Zone, 1959. Before there were galaxies to explore or starships to command, there was the Twilight Zone. Premiering in 1959 and created by Rod Serling, it wasn't just a show, it was a mirror. A quiet, unsettling reflection of humanity's darkest instincts and brightest hopes. Serling, frustrated by Hollywood censorship, built the Twilight Zone as his rebellion. A place where he could talk about racism, war, corruption, and greed. Through aliens, robots, and dreams. Every episode was a short story told with haunting precision. A man wakes up alone in an empty town that isn't real. A soldier relives a battle that hasn't happened yet. A woman undergoes plastic surgery to look normal, only for the twist to reveal that society's idea of beauty is monstrous. There were no simple endings, only lessons. The Twilight Zone made audiences think, and for that, it became one of the most important television shows ever made. It didn't just rival Star Trek, it built the foundation that every sci-fi series since has walked upon. But behind the brilliance, Serling fought battles that few ever saw. Networks censored his scripts. Sponsors demanded less politics, more aliens. Every attempt to tell the truth was met with pressure to soften the blow. Serling, exhausted, left the show he created after 5 seasons. Hollywood keeps trying to recapture its magic with bigger budgets, modern effects, and familiar faces, but it never works. Because the Twilight Zone wasn't about spectacle, it was about conscience. It was a man in a dark suit, speaking softly to America's fear of itself. And that's the great irony. The most profound science fiction ever made didn't need phasers or warp drives or billion-dollar sets. It needed truth, and a storyteller brave enough to tell it. The Twilight Zone wasn't just more popular than Star Trek. It shaped the soul of science fiction itself. And yet, even it wasn't safe from the one force that could never be conquered: Hollywood's hunger to remake what it can't understand. If you grew up watching these shows, or if you're just discovering them now, let us know your thoughts in the comment, as this helps bring the gems alive. Also, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Vintaverse to keep the light of forgotten science fiction burning bright.